Thank you, CAO Higdon. Appreciate the reminder. Over.
All right, we're good to go.
Okay, welcome everybody to our December 9th meeting of council. We've got a first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to take a look? Anybody have any revisions, or do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move as written.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Contrary minded? Passed. Okay, second item, we have the minutes from last meeting. If everybody's had a chance to review those minutes. If I hear no do we have any objections, any notes on points to mention? If not, if I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 3, business arising from the minutes. We have nothing noted on the agenda. Has anybody anything to add that we've missed or they'd like to bring as business from last meeting? From the minutes. Anything arising?
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, brings us to point number 4 on the agenda. We have Shelley Manning has accompanied us, has joined us today, and I believe Shelley has a presentation for the Pictou County Food Bank East.
So Susan, can you put on the other, like, that one. Push it in. Yeah, that was too dark. You can put that one in. Oh, maybe turn it? It must be turned down or something. Push it again, and then turn it. Maybe.
There we go.
You folks see that okay?
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having us. We really appreciate being able to come out and just have a conversation. We've been doing it with a few of the towns now, and it's been really great to get some feedback and answer some questions. Yeah, so not a very formal presentation, but just want to share some facts and figures about us. So, first of all, you might not know, but we're located on 410 Granville Street, so it's just in behind the Aberdeen Sobeys. We serve families throughout Pictou County, so of course in the towns in the county as well, though. So from like Sunnybray to Central West River, really all over Pictou County, we're serving whoever needs us. We are managed and operated solely by volunteers. So we have 2 groups of volunteers. The first is our operations. So this is about 55 people who volunteer Monday to Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the most common days. These folks are mostly seniors. They're dedicated and hardworking. We have very little volunteer turnover. Our volunteers are fantastic. And our board of directors are also volunteer run. So we have a group of about 8 or 9 now. Yeah, on our board. And then we're also fortunate to partner with another group of volunteers who are led by Jim McKenna. They do deliveries for us on Wednesdays. So this started during COVID. We have a group of folks who come in. Clients can order their food bank orders, and this group will deliver on Wednesdays. This year we've had over 1,400 deliveries so far. We are one of the first food banks in Canada to receive an accreditation under the, it's been a minute here, National Standards of Excellence. We were actually the first in Nova Scotia to get this, and we did it in the last few months. And it's just new standards of excellence presented by Food Bank Canada to ensure that all food banks supported under them are following a certain standard of transparency and operational excellence.
Okay, and I'll just talk a little bit about our clients. As you can see on the slide, we've got over 1,500 households that we provide support to throughout Pictou County. And the thing that we find really quite amazing, particularly this past year, we're seeing the number of new clients continue to rise. This is year to date, so, and I think that was at the end of October actually. So about 30 new households joining or coming to the food bank looking for services a month. So we're going to probably be closer to 350 this year, I would imagine. And again, it just shows the demand and the need. We have, of those 1,530 households, some come in monthly, some come in every 2 or 3 months, depending on their need. So over the course of January to the end of October, early November, we've had over 17,000 individuals that have been provided food, and those are not unique individuals, so that would be the household, and depending on how many are in that household and how many times they came. But we've delivered or provided food to fill over 7,000 orders. So again, numbers that are just really, we're seeing them rise and increase a lot in the last year. Our clients, we have approximately 30% who are seniors, 55 and over. We have a number of children in the households. I think over 40% of our clientele have children in their homes. And with respect to kind of what they receive, they're eligible to come in once a month. You probably can't hear me, can you? Oh, good. Once a month, and when they come in, they receive, perishable products, non-perishable products, and then usually a snack bag, and then special items. And special items end up being things like coffee or tea, baby products, personal hygiene items, and so we try and ensure we're able to provide those extras depending on their request. Of course, dog and cat food that they may require. But that just kind of gives you a little overview of kind of our clients and who we're serving.
Awesome. So, taking a peek at our operations, we depend heavily on the generosity of our community. So things like what you guys did this weekend is really how we operate. We have several food industry partners, so Sobeys, Walmart, Loblaws, and we're lucky to have quite a few private donors. So several people in the last few years have left us sizable donations in their wills. But then, of course, we have our local businesses, churches, community groups who do things like food drives, hold events, even just holding like a food bank event in their area is all very helpful, and it's how we operate. We also receive funding from Feed Nova Scotia, so they're the provincial food bank here. We receive, what was the breakdown, Shelley, do you remember? Really rough, I shouldn't have said it.
Yeah. The extra fees that came, or the extra funds that came in this past few months. Yeah, oh, totally.
Okay,
yeah,
never mind.
sorry.
We're trying to calculate a question we have from...
Oh, that number, yes.
Yeah.
25%.
25%, okay. 25% of our food or funding?
Our food.
Our food comes from Feed Nova Scotia. Sorry about that.
So, off on a tangent.
So as I said before, our 55 volunteers come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But then we have folks come in on Tuesday and Thursday to do things like stock the shelves, organize, make sure everything's cleaned up. And then we have folks going to events. We have people taking care of the truck. We have people doing building maintenance. We're really running 7 days a week if you look at all of our activities. So our volunteers are crucial. If you look at our operations, our costs and demand is also increasing. So just like everyone, our food prices are going up. Right now, we are spending about $23,000 a month on food. And it is costing about $400,000 a year to operate. Yeah. And as Shelley just said, our number of orders are going up really high at an increase of 17% from last year so far.
And then, just in case you're wondering from your own constituents, if someone comes along and says, well, how do I access the food bank? It's actually really simple. There is no income cap. I think often people think that that's the case. When we look at our clients, and we have, like again, we have a lot of people that are working 1 and 2 jobs, and are still struggling. I think, as we all can see, the costs of heating and costs of gasoline and costs of food. So tell your clients they need to come to our facility the first time, and that would be Monday, Wednesday, or Friday mornings between 8:30 and 11:30. We're on Granville Street, as Courtney mentioned. And then we look for some basic information. We need to have, name, date of birth for each member of the household, address and phone number, and they need to provide ID for each member of the household. And then when they come back, if they're coming back once a month, they do need to bring that ID every time for each member of their household. And that's pretty well it. So it's not onerous for them to sign up and come in, and then they're eligible to come in once a month.
That is pretty much all we have to share, really. We wanted to thank you so much for having us. And going forward, if you ever have any opportunities for us to partner, we've been asking the towns to do exactly what you guys just did, actually, is just keep us in mind. If you have opportunities to host a food drive, please do. Ask us if you have any questions. If you happen to know of any grants that we may be able to apply to, let us know. Just keep us in the back of your mind.
Yeah, so just to talk about what the town did on Saturday. So the Stellarton Police Department held their first annual food drive down at Stellarton, and Constable McAdam kind of spearheaded that. So I believe it was Constable Holland and Morell and McAdam, and then they had Officer Friendly down there from 11 to 4. And in speaking with Constable McAdam today, they had the equivalent of 5 full grocery carts and $1,100 worth of donations. So they were very pleased to bring that over today. And from my understanding, that this is going to become an annual event.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And with regards to donations from the town, we do have an annual grants program. So letters of request just come in before the end of February.
Okay.
And council will consider those requests during budget deliberations. So.
Awesome. Great to know. Did you folks have any questions for us?
Anybody? I can always drum up a question.
Let's hear it.
Thank you very much for coming, and commend you for your work. I mean, it's so important. Did I understand correctly? 30 additional households, or 300?
About a month. That's what we've
30
seen
per
this
month.
past year. It'll be probably 350 before the end of this year. So those are additional new households, and what we don't have here is how many are in those households. Some of them could be single person households, others could be families. But since the beginning of the year, over 300 new clients.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that would certainly be in line with, I guess, people's general perception. The needs seem to be increasing. So that just validates that. Congratulations on the recognition, right? National Standard of Excellence. Well done.
So we have a chair, and Courtney's the vice chair. Just phenomenal. They were out there getting information and getting it done, and we were the first in Nova Scotia, and it's just one of those things that will then make it easier for us going forward, accessing national grants and things like that. If they happen to come along, it'll show that we're following a protocol, and different policies and programs are in place to ensure we're making sure everything's done up to snuff or above.
No, it's excellent. You don't enter this kind of work for the thanks or rewards, right? You do it for other incentives, but it certainly is excellent to have that excellence rewarded and public. One other question: how do you go about purchasing? So I would like to think you have some attractive or reduced discounted price. And do you have a group you leverage with, or how does that work?
Take that one and start now.
Sure. So we have a great team of buyers, I'll say, who obviously shop the flyers as much as possible. We have great relationships with the store managers around here at Sobeys, Giant Tiger, TRA, Cash and Carry. But we are working with Sobeys right now on a program that will give us slightly lower prices than what we'll be able to get even on sales. And we also have something called Second Harvest, which isn't a purchasing platform, but it is a way that we get a lot of our food. Do you want to speak to Second Harvest?
Sure. Second Harvest is a national program, and the objective is to try and take food away from landfills. So most of the major retailers are part of it, and when they have product available that's maybe close to expire, not expired, best before dates, or that they're not able to move, then they'll make it available to anybody who's a part of the Second Harvest group, which we are, and we get just phenomenal support from the local retailers here for that, and so that allows us to get warehouse or pallets full of food coming in on a weekly basis.
That's great. I was curious how that worked. I'd
Yeah.
like to believe there was some. It sounds like you're independently working. There's not a national kind of food bank effort, but you're
For
each
purchasing.
seeking out your opportunities.
No, Feed Nova Scotia, I will say, has a similar setup that we're going to be able to get with Sobeys through their wholesale price lane, they call it. So they're already using that. They're getting food very low prices, like close to cost. And we get a lot of our food through them. So in a way, we are, for sure. Yeah.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I have no other questions if anybody else does.
Yeah.
I do. I have a 16-year-old at home, and he is in dire need of some life experience and volunteer time to kind of see how the world works. Unfortunately, SPCA, which is his first pick for volunteer location, their requirements are that they're 18 years of age or older. I'm wondering, for our local food bank, what's your need for volunteers look like, and what are your prerequisites or requirements?
I can just start
Yeah.
with respect to our needs. We do have a very, very strong group of volunteers, so we are very fortunate. We have small, very low turnover. We need people Monday, Wednesday, Friday during our client days, and Tuesday, Thursdays for packing, and that's 8:30 to 11:30. We have a woman who coordinates all of our volunteers, so I think it's on our website. There is a volunteer form to fill out and send in to us. I'm not sure if we have an age requirement though, and I'd have to check on that. Do you know,
Not sure.
Courtney?
I can't
Yeah,
remember.
Anne would know. We can certainly send back some information to Susan and with information on any
Yep.
specific details and how he'd be able to join us. Would he be available during school hours or? Well, that's,
Summer, yes.
yeah.
I will say there's other opportunities to volunteer with us that we need to get better at communicating to the public, I feel. For instance, walking in a parade or showing up to a fundraising event, or there's tons of opportunities that we definitely could use folks for, and I think that's something that we'll be looking at in the new year, is kind of creating a way for people to be aware of those opportunities, for sure.
Perfect.
And yeah,
Thank you.
reach out if you want to, for sure, and we'll look into what we have coming up.
Awesome.
And I'll make sure I get something back to Susan, okay?
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. And I'll say to you, as well as to Catherine, you're absolutely perfectly welcome to stay the entire, but we also want you to know that you're not obligated to stay here for the entire show.
Much
So
appreciated.
feel Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Merry Christmas. Okay, our number six on the agenda is, number 5 is a presentation from Catherine Tanner for Pictou County Roots for Youth.
So, hi everybody. My name is Catherine Tanner. I am the Executive Director at Pictou County Roots for Youth. Just a quick background about me. I am born and raised in Stellarton. Other than off to university and a short stint in Sydney, I've lived here my whole life. I have a criminology degree in corrections, and I also have a correctional services diploma. So some of you may, well, you know now, Roots for Youth is now located in Stellarton. Our organization opened in 2011 as an emergency shelter for at-risk youth, ages 16 to 24. That program has now grown. We have our emergency shelter, which is 8 beds. We do have 2 kind of overflow couches. The goal is to get to a capacity of 12 with some renovations. We also have our supportive housing unit and an outreach program. So our shelter, emergency shelter, is located on Stellar Street, 122 Stellar Street. It's actually across the street from the house I grew up in on Stellar Street. So I was maybe 8 months ago when I learned that Grant Street is the cut. I did not know that the cut was called Grant Street. Our supportive housing unit is located on 64 Poplar Street, and then our outreach is out in the community. For those that don't know about the supportive housing unit, it is the youth that are there, they pay rent to live there. They earn the ability to live there. So whether it's through school, whether it's through work, whether it's through working on mental health programming, that kind of thing, they do pay rent to live up there. And they can stay for up to 2 years-ish. With the housing crisis, we know that it's very hard for many of us to find somewhere to live, so there is some flexibility with that 2 years. Just like our shelter, when I first started with Roots 2 years ago, it was 3 months. And as I saw the turnover and having to say, sorry, bud, you gotta go, it's been 3 months, that doesn't work. And so there's only 2 other shelters-ish in the province, Phoenix and Halifax, which is 16 to 24, and also Shift in Yarmouth, that's 16 to 24. There is another shelter in Truro, it's called Haven House. They take 16 and up. But they don't have a cutoff for their age. So we really do try to work with them if they have youth between that age group. If we have a bed available, we do try to, especially that 16 to 18 range. If we can kind of bring them to our environment, we do definitely try to do that. We serve youth from not only Pictou County, all over the province and the country. We've had youth from Ontario, we've had youth from Alberta, just with people moving in to the province. So yeah, we serve a lot. We serve, generally speaking, it's that 16 to 18 range of youth. Male, female, gender diverse, African, Nova Scotian, Indigenous. And we provide programming, we provide a safe place to stay, we've got a community cupboard. We are funded by Department of Community Services for basic needs, so the roof over our head, and at the shelter 2 meals a day, and at the transitional housing project 1 meal a day. So at that project, they are expected that this is the stepping stones to living on your own, and we will provide 1 meal, but they are required to provide 2 of their own. So whether it's through accessing things like the food bank or, working and being able to provide for themselves. So it's quite rewarding to watch the youth that are able to move up from the shelter environment into that supportive housing unit, because then that has 5 beds in it. Because that's the goal, right, is to be able to transition them. We are definitely struggling with our 16 to 18 range, because the mental health services are absolutely not there to be able to, even if you're the president of the Students' Council and the star of the hockey team, a landlord's not going to rent to a 17-year-old. They also can't sign leases, so we've had many talks with DCS as to, how can we work on this, and it's a crack in the, and so we're doing the best that we can. I keep the kids as long as I can. It is a volunteer program, and so if they say, well, I don't like it here, and I'll say, well, I don't like your rules, we can try to help, you find somewhere else to be. We do have to have rules, and we have to abide by them. So sometimes that means a youth that has come from Amherst is, so we call it AWOL. They don't come back for curfew, they can't come in. And so it sounds harsh, but when they come in, they have a youth handbook, and we go through, the rules and regulations several times so that we are sure that they understand. Because that first day or evening or in the middle of the night that they show up with us, for most of them, it's the worst day of their life because they're realizing that they're homeless. A lot of them are not from this community, so now they're also in a place that they don't know. They've never been before. They don't know anybody. So, we do our best to be, warm and kind and help them to learn that society has rules and we have to abide by them. And so, sometimes, unfortunately, we have to dabble in homelessness as well because we can't have, violence inside the home. We have staff and other youth to look out for as well. And so, sometimes that's a delicate situation. I will say that I had a meeting when we first came to Stellarton with the Stellarton Police, and they have been amazing. We made some changes to the way we operated. So I've been the executive director coming up on a year. It's been a rough, it's been a rough year for us, but we've worked really hard. We've got a whole new team, and we're, I think, coming out on the other side of it. And so simply by changing a few little things, we say a youth, for example, if they have a probation order and they have a curfew of 6 p.m., Stellarton Police are going to drive by. They're either there or they're not. The kid's going to wave from the window, or if someone comes to the door, we'll say, sorry, he's not here. And that just, it's that give and take, right? And, we work really hard to have a really good rapport with our youth. And so they know that when we're calling, they need to come. And it's so far, like it's been, I really have to commend the Stellarton Police because this is new to them, right? Having an emergency shelter in the town and dealing with, kind of potential of youth coming in from other communities. So it's not lost on me, the change that is for the town of Stellarton. Like I said, again, I've lived in Stellarton my whole life. And, the last thing I want to do is cause fear. People are afraid of what they don't understand. And so I always say to people, if you don't know, ask me. I'll make a presentation to whoever anybody wants me to. The biggest thing that I want to be able to do is to arm people with knowledge so that when, I mean, it's inevitable, there are issues that come up that, the constituents are not very happy with, at least you as counselors, as mayor, as administrative officers will have the knowledge when you're speaking with them and the correct information. So, yeah. Many questions for me, I'm sure.
You ready for questions?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I feel like there's so many more things I could. Oh, before we get into questions, February 22nd, 2025, coldest night of the year. It's our major fundraiser that we do every year. Between COVID and changes in leadership, and it has not, I don't want to say it hasn't gone as well. We haven't raised as much money as we have in the past. And that's something I would really like to change this year. I also want to acknowledge that Roots for Youth is not just, because we're in Stellarton, I don't want Stellarton to bear, burden's not the right word, but you know what I mean? We serve Pictou County, so it's Stellarton, it's Westville, it's Pictou, it's a municipality. And I really kind of want to encourage other councils, and hopefully they'll invite me to have a little little chat as well, because coldest night of the year runs all across Canada on the same night. It's kind of cool. Everybody walks. In every community that does it, same time, they do the same thing. So this year it's going to be run out of the Wellness Center like it was last year, and because we had to pivot for the storm, and it does actually, we'll walk through the town of Stellarton. We came up Ford Street, and I would like to use the trail this year because the harsh reality is that people sleep in the woods. And it just kind of gives a little idea of, you know, who we are and what we do and the realities that some of our youth face. So.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah, no notes that I can see, and no. But anyway, you've done this before.
Little funny side note: we did a presentation last year that I thought we were just going to, and it was very newly after I had taken over as executive director, and they were asking me about PowerPoints, and I oh no, and then I thought we were sitting on a side table that other people weren't at, and I looked at my program manager and I said, oh. We are the presentation. And I don't know how I get up there, and I just spoke from the heart for an hour about basically we're two mothers of teenagers. I have 3 teenagers of my own, and my program manager, Stacy, she has 2 teenagers, and we're just trying to help these kids like we would our own kids, and sometimes it's really tough because we take it home with us, and we also have to protect our own children because sometimes, I'm going to be very honest, these kids are dangerous. And we do our best, and we hope that it doesn't. But if I make a decision, like any of us would, that somebody doesn't like, you know, we want to protect our own kids and our own families. And you know, saying that the kids are dangerous, that seems harsh, but the reality is that, you know, sometimes there are people that are dangerous. And so, you know, I don't want to sugarcoat who we are, what we do, and who we deal with. So, questions?
I've heard a lot of presentations over the years, and I can tell this is right from the heart. And I want to say, I admire what you're doing, and what you're doing is not a very easy job, complicated, and good luck.
Well put. Absolutely. Commend you for your work. Anybody else? Floor's open.
Hi. So I had the privilege of having an impromptu conversation with Catherine a couple weeks ago at the Wellness Center. I've known Catherine my whole life, and we discussed a little bit more, brought me up to speed with the current situation with Roots for Youth. After moving into Stellarton, I was aware when Catherine moved from her previous employment to a more full-time position with Roots for Youth. I wasn't aware that you were the new executive director and the complications that you've had to overcome in rectifying some of the issues that have been brought up from the past administration with Roots for Youth. So it's been a big learning experience for me, and I will second what Gary said about it being very commendable and very respectful what you're doing, because I can only imagine dealing with my own kids who are relatively easy, some of the difficulties and the stress that can cause, let alone a whole bunch of other people's kids. So my idea, I suppose, with discussing this at Committee of the Whole was with bringing Catherine in, because you said, yeah, I absolutely will come in and speak, just to bring some awareness, like you said, about knowing what we know and being able to answer questions based on a foundation of knowledge, not speculation or complaints from constituents. To have that understanding is fantastic, and I would love to try to move forward in whatever capacity we can to help support Roots for Youth in the endeavor of making other municipalities, other towns and councils aware of what's going on, and get everybody a little more cohesive and collective, because it is a shared resource, a shared amenity. It would just so happen to be right after our regional training, after the Peace Medal breakfast, that Catherine and I had this conversation in the Wellness Center. I said, Roots for Youth should very much be be given their hour to speak to all the new municipal councils, just to say, hey, this is a resource that we have here, just like the Wellness Center or Pictou County Mental Wellness, just to get some awareness and education around, and then see how that could move forward with supporting, because I think it's a very important resource that we have that we need to be able to acknowledge and support in whatever way that we can moving forward.
Mark, you have something?
I do, yes. I'd just like to echo that. I appreciate what you do. I also work with kids, but the younger group. I'm working in elementary school, and certainly not to put you on the hot seat at all, but do you or your staff like have an opportunity to be trained in like trauma-informed practices and things like that?
Yeah, so we, everybody's first aid CPR trained, obviously. We also have assist training, so suicide intervention training, trauma-informed training, crisis intervention training. This type of position, we are government funded, but we're not government run. And so when you work at a place like Bridges, which I actually worked at years ago as a frontline staff, you know, they have all that kind of government-funded training that comes with that, and also a stipulation. Now, just given, you know, the way the world has kind of gone, when I worked there, you had to have a degree. Now, that isn't the case. The difference with us is that there is no requirement for education. What I will say is we have a staff member in particular who worked at a restaurant for 25 years. And we interviewed her and we said, you know, what's your idea of crisis intervention? And she said, oh, I'm not sure. And then she gave me 3 beautiful examples of crisis intervention that she did while working as a waitress. And so for me, of course, education is everything. There are also some things that innately people just have and they can't be taught.
Life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we give as much training as we possibly can. Again, the harsh reality of that is these training sessions are very expensive. And so if somebody doesn't come with that training from the NSCC, who has been a wonderful partner, so they put on their assist training every single year with their new classes, and they will offer us up seats at their level. So basically we're just paying for the book so that we can help train our staff because, you know, having those suicide intervention skills is very important, especially, you know, with the youth that we deal with.
Good.
Catherine, what kind of things do you do all day with the teens? Or
Yeah, so the goal is for them to get into school, for them to try to get a job. Sometimes they are nowhere near that. And we are the first stable 3 meals a day, warm bed that they've had in a very long time. A lot of them are heavily addicted to a plethora of substances. And so it's kind of navigating through that, meeting them where they're at. We kind of treat that first week, 2 weeks as just a get your footing, because if we're going to work to help with the youth, they have to trust us. And a lot of times, everybody in their lives has let them down. And so why would anybody tell me their life story and all of the potentially unpleasant things that have happened to them when they met me yesterday? And many of the youth have told that story so many times, they get re-traumatized by doing that. So that first couple of weeks is really about building rapport. And we're double staffed during the day and back shift. There's somebody in the building, 2 staff all the time. Monday to Friday, we have, there's myself, a program manager of both buildings. We have a housing support navigator, and we have a facilities maintenance coordinator as well. And we just work with the kids where they're at. So for me, where that 3 months kind of kicks in is, and we get it, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we will provide all of the resources that we possibly can, but because of its volunteer nature, we can't force them So if after 3 months, a youth has done absolutely nothing to try to take us up on what we are trying to do, that's when I'll make the difficult decision with my program manager to say, your 3 months is up. Unfortunately, we're going to have to transition you to Phoenix or to Shift. And we do have funding to have those transportations made. And, you know, there's been lots of times that we have found a bed for a youth in the city for whatever reason. If, unfortunately, we've had to remove them from our program for whatever reason, and we've purchased the bus ticket, and they get in the cab, and they say, see you later, and then they don't actually get on the bus. And so then they are, you know, within the community. And that's it's tough because I know that we don't want people hanging around. We don't want, and so we do make every effort to set something up for them. We do have a no drug, alcohol, or drug paraphernalia policy within the shelter and on the property. If you meet a youth out in the community, they will most likely tell you that we told them to be wherever they're at. We absolutely 1,000% did not tell them to be where they're at. And so I can understand where there might be some confusion when, you know, somebody says, well, Roots told me to be there. And I get why they're saying that. I totally do. They're mad at us. But at the end of the day, they're natural consequences for your actions. And as much as we are there to help support them, we're also not going to enable them, because that doesn't help them at all.
So what's your biggest challenge? Like, you've got a big ball of wax there with so many challenges, but if you were limited it to one biggest challenge, what is it?
Mental health and addictions. And in the different seminars that I've been kind of to over the past 2 years, I've been in, you know, quite a few with the Town of Glasgow, where they do have Viola's Place, and, you know, what can we do? When I sit there and kind of listen to it, I think, this is not a municipal issue that's going to be solved by the Town of Stellarton or the Town of Glasgow or the Town of Westville or a provincial or a federal. It's an international issue that every province, every country is seeing, especially youth mental health. It's not great. You know, for us, if we have a kid that needs acute care, they have to go to the IWK. In there, you know, so we call it stage 1, stage 2, because we do have in our outreach program, we do have Outreach Plus services, which attaches a social worker to that, but really it's tier 1, tier 2 care. So workshops, supportive conversations, some groceries, you know, that kind of thing. Tier 3 would be your Nova Scotia Health, so mental health through that tier 3 program. And then tier 4 and 5 would be the IWK. So things like the Guerin Project, which is an intensive stay at that facility. The reality is kids get released from the Guerin Project to us. We're not social workers. We're not psychologists. We are literally people doing the best we can with the best of our abilities. And so mental health and addictions is a lot. And, you know, we do have kids that they want to do drugs in their parents' basement and their parents won't let them. And so then that's a hard, you know, when we have kids between 16 and 18, we are legally bound to report that to the Department of Community Services, because as parents, we are legally bound to raise our children until they're at the age of 19. And so, as you can well imagine, those systems are backed up. Investigation would pursue, and then, of course, there's so many factors. So maybe home is safe and mom and dad are safe, but there's a younger sibling or a pet, and that youth in question is a danger to that younger sibling or the pet. And so they may be deemed that they can't go home for those reasons, and maybe they can't go home because home is not safe. And if that is the case, it then we kind of pivot and go from there. Okay, they can't go home. What's next? How do we get them ready to live on their own? They do, once it's deemed that they can't go home, they do qualify for a form of income assistance. So that does help with things like the rent at the transitional housing project. But there's a real gap between 16 and 18, and it's a sad thing to say, but homelessness is not a deterrent anymore. And we're definitely seeing that. We say, well, because of XYZ, or we're going to have to exit you for the evening. And kids, especially youth that are from here, kids will couch surf. And I kind of was introduced to that when I worked at Bridges. When I was at Bridges, it was ages 12 to 16. So the age range is a little bit different. I do kind of want to note that in our outreach program, we do have the capacity for 12 to 15, but those are only kids in care, and it's a referral from the Department of Community Services. So any 15-year-old, like I have a 14-year-old, she wouldn't be able to access our outreach services unless DCS was involved. We don't operate in the schools. We work very collaboratively with Schools Plus because the goal is to have the youth in school. But what happens if they're not? And so, they'll transition youth to us, because once they lose Schools Plus and their outreach program, who helps them? What happens after that? And then the goal is to kind of transition them and get them back. Maybe it's the alternative school, which is so amazing that we have that opportunity, because every kid learns differently, and maybe they're just not cut out for high school, the beast that is high school, right? We've all been there. We all know, what high school can be like. It can be a very wonderful experience for most kids. It can also be a horrifying, terrifying experience for others. And so, yeah, we work pretty closely with Schools Plus to do what we can. So.
Well, you're dealing with one piece to a very large puzzle, and if we do this right across the municipalities, we'll each chip in the right manner, as well as I think it extends beyond into provincial matters as well. But if we do it right, unfortunately, the early ones in do the heavier lifting. But if we do it right, we'll get more hands in there to look after this and address it and manage that weight appropriately. But anyway, I think we all commend you for what you're doing and appreciate the information. We could keep you here all night with questions, likely.
I did kind of want to clarify just one thing. So I did put in a proposal for a tax exemption. And unbeknownst to me, when we first were going to be coming to Stellarton, we had a little meeting, and it was talked about, but it was never actually, I had no idea. So we weren't getting a bill, and I said to my admin guy, because we had Poplar Street, I said, can you call them? And I don't know why we don't have this bill. Meanwhile, I had already sent my letter to council asking for tax exemption. Come to find out, graciously, we actually are tax exempt on our Stellar Street property. And so I want to thank graciously the council for that. And I do want to kind of explain myself that it's been a long year and I had no idea that we were actually tax exempt on that property. So just some clarification.
Appreciate that. Your neighbors, are they saying much these days? Are you hearing from the neighbors? Because that's a big part of the balance is from the town's perspective is managing whatever is in place throughout the areas. They're managed appropriately, right? And the residents are comfortable and they're safe and they're everything else we all should be.
So I think the toughest thing for some of the neighbors is who are displeased when we say what they do when they leave the property. There's nothing we can do about that. And if it's something that you feel is above the law or against the law, please phone the police. The problem is that people don't like calling the police on youth. And so, they will phone us again, and we say, and that's where it's hard, because I'll say, it's a consequence of their actions. If Johnny steals your lawnmower, I am not going to protect him from that. October, before we moved in, of course, we thought we were going to be in much sooner than we were. We had an open house, and we invited the people on the street. I actually sat in quite a few living rooms myself and spoke with people, because I love Stellarton, and I don't want people to be afraid. And the program is also, and this is in no way any shade towards Viola's, the program is just very different. And so I think people kind of weren't aware of, that they're not the same. And so, we did have one neighbor who was not very happy, and I said, this is my concern. I said, I grew up in that house right there, and I know that apartment building over there and that one over there have been a bit of an issue since I have lived in Stellarton my whole life. And I said, so my concern is that my kids will get blamed for things that they didn't do because of where they live. So the neighbors, we have a shared driveway with one older couple. They are amazing. They are wonderful. They are very supportive. And it's been a journey with some of the others. There has been one woman who actually hired one of the youth to do some yard work, and he did a very good job. So I'm grateful that interaction has happened. And so, we do our very best. Sometimes the kids come home and they're drunk and they're hooping and hollering, and that could happen in any neighborhood. You could live in the most affluent neighborhood in the world and have somebody move in that you don't like. And I'm also very sensitive to the neighbors, because I've dropped a huge change on their street, and I am painfully aware of that. I live on Allen Avenue. I live beside the old Rundle House, so that apartment building that is there. So I am very aware of, some of the issues that neighbors would have. And so we're working with them. And when they do phone, I do have to keep reiterating. When my teenagers leave, I don't say this, but, when my teenagers leave my property, I have to hope that I've instilled, and we have had many conversations with the youth, like, man, these guys this is the street, like, don't respect the neighbors, and give respect, you get respect. And so it's a work in progress, and at the end of the day, we can say all we want. It's up to the youth to then take that knowledge that we've given them, and unfortunately, sometimes they don't. I would encourage them to follow through in whatever way neighbors feel that they need to, because on our level, once they leave the property, there's nothing that we can do.
Great, thanks very much. Any other questions?
Quick ones. I promise. Gary. We'll be out soon. Sorry. Capacity. Are you ever having to turn people away because you're at capacity?
All of the time. 2-3 weeks ago, we turned 7 kids away in one day.
And this is from the emergency housing?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have like a strategic plan in place to acquire another property? I know that you mentioned hoping to expand beds in the existing properties, but is there a long-term plan to have other properties, including other staff, social workers on hand, to kind of bridge the gap in that mental health and addictions need?
The plan is there. We, as an organization, have had instability for a long time. And I personally, and I think that my board of directors feels the same way, we need to create stability with the programs that we have and have them run effectively before we can kind of expand. We are actually we have egress windows that we have to put in. We only have 3 youth currently in the supportive housing unit because we don't have the proper windows, and we have struggled to get a contractor. Anyway, long story short, we do have one now. But even when we only had those 3 beds, getting those beds filled, it was tough because people don't want to pay for rules. And so even though it's $535 for rent, some might rather pay $800 and not have rules. You know, there's no overnight guests, there's no drugs, alcohol, drug paraphernalia in the rooms, there's no visitors, there's no, you know, it is a transition, a supportive, kind of like a one step down from Cody's place. So there are more rules in place for that. So, you know, capacity-wise for us right now, there is no plan for expansion. What I am trying to look into is that Outreach Plus program that I spoke of does come with a social worker attached, but that's for the outreach youth. And so sometimes, one minute the kid's in outreach youth, and the next minute they're in the shelter. And then the next minute they're outreach again. And so, you know, you start to work with the social worker, but then you're in the shelter. And so I'm, you know, working to try to figure out where's the boundaries. Can we continue this even when they're in the shelter? And if not, are there any moves being made towards a shelter plus, or, you know, something of that nature, which there isn't currently right now? Some of the bigger organizations like Phoenix has a social worker. We just don't. And normally we would just do a referral through to mental health. But we all know that system is very taxed. I've worked really hard in the last 6 months to apply for as many grants, wellness grants, as I possibly can to pay for private counseling. And so, you know, we hope that the youth will take us up on that. And again, you know, we can provide it. They need to go. So.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Catherine. If there's no other questions, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for coming down. Okay, number 6, we have reports from staff for the month of November.
I'll move the police report as written, Your Worship.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Motion passed. Second is Fire Chief, Fire Department report by Chief Michael Sullivan.
I'll pass the report as written, Your Worship.
And seconded.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Opposed? Passed. Okay, the Marketing and Communications report by Paige Draper.
I'll make a motion to move that, to accept that.
Okay, wait a second.
I'll second that.
Great.
This will be easier after Saturday.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. And the final report is from the town engineer, Blaine Murray. I have a motion to,
I make a motion that we pass the report as written, and I want to thank Blaine and Weeks Construction for doing such a fine job on Kirk Avenue. It was complicated. I must say the people in the area had strong patience, especially when it came to the water issues. The water lines down there, I don't know if you guys are aware, were quite old, and it was a job well overdue. And would you pass that on, Susan? Thank you. Second.
and a second to pass the report?
I'll second that.
And I should have been asking after we pass if there's any questions on the reports. I take it there's not been. If anybody
No.
As otherwise, let us know. I will also, though I am curious on that report, so it's 90% complete. Do we know when, I believe it indicates that Kirk Avenue is 90% complete. Do we know when the estimated completion is?
It'll be done before the year end.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? No questions to report? Okay, all passed, so moved, and we're on to item number 7 is correspondence. We have something from the Healthy Pictou County.
Yes, Your Worship. This is a monthly report from Healthy Pictou County, just updating from Nicole LeBlanc, the project navigator. And for your information, this is the group that help promote Pictou County as an area for healthcare providers. She doesn't like it to be called doctor recruitment, but yeah, so it's to promote Pictou County as a place to come and provide healthcare. And this is, they do a report every month, and this is for your information.
Okay.
Great, anybody comments on any of that? Chance to read it?
Yep.
We'll move on to the number 8 is committee of the whole report is typically here. Now, we don't have a report this time, as there was.
Your thing's not on there. Sorry.
Oh. We're on to number 8, committee of the whole report. We would typically have at this point, but we have no report this meeting, as there was no decisions made from the committee of the whole meeting to bring forward, or recommendations to bring forward to council. So we have nothing to report on item 8. But that brings us to number 9, growth and renewal for infrastructure development program.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is for council's information. So the Growth and Renewal Infrastructure Development Program, GRID as it is known, is a new funding opportunity. And this priorities are given, it's a provincial funding opportunity. Its priorities are given to shovel-ready projects and that expand or preserve housing, which includes water, sanitary sewer, or storm water. And to echo Councillor Pence's comments regarding Kirk Avenue and the necessity of replacing those water lines and sewer lines. So when we were doing that work, Rutherford Street experienced a number of water breaks because the infrastructure is so old. So it is strongly recommended by staff that Rutherford Street would be our next priority. So the deadline to apply for this funding is December 13th. And this is stackable funding, meaning that if there's gas tax money, this can be added to this funding. So I'm asking council for approval through a resolution to allow myself and the town engineer to apply for funding not to exceed $3 million. So like I said, the application is due on Friday, so Blaine is just kind of working out the details on costing. He's assuring me it'll be between 2.5, 2.7. So just to make sure that we're okay with contingency, I'm asking for the resolution to read up to, not to exceed 3 million. So be it resolved that the town council of the town of Stellarton, that the chief administration officer and town engineer be authorized to submit an application for a project under the Growth and Renewal for Infrastructure Development Fund for the following prioritized project for the fiscal year 2025-2026.
Okay, I hear a motion by Councillor Pence,
Yep. And I'll second that.
second by Councillor Ice. All in favor? Opposed?
I don't know how you could oppose that.
Right, and that's for the application. No money committed, it's a resolution to apply for funds. Thank you. This moves to the open forum.
Your Worship, there is a couple of things I would like to say at the open forum. First of all, I would like to thank Paige and the Stellarton Fire Department for doing such a nice job on the tree lighting that we had on the 29th. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I was there. It was a great turnout, you know, and a lot of really good feedback and well put together. A lot of legwork to do that.
I should have mentioned it when we did the report, Your Worship, but I'm getting older.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, open forum. Anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak? Now's the time. Looks like we have nothing. So our next council meeting is slated, according to item 11, for Monday, January 13th at 5:30 p.m.
Seems so far away, doesn't it?
And Merry
Make a motion
Christmas.
that we adjourn.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah.
A motion to adjourn by